Well, I'm the managing director for the UK for Diesel. We are a retailer and a wholesaler, so we have 12 standalone stores, about 20 concessions with the likes of Selfridges, House of Fraser, Harvey Nichols, etc. And we also have a strong wholesale business where we sell to the likes of ASOS, Next, Shop Direct, John Lewis, and other department stores and small independent chains. The brand is relatively young. It's 33 years old altogether, but it's been in this country in any sort of significant form for about 15 years. And you know, we pride ourselves on obviously our denim, but more than that now, we have a true lifestyle offering. So you can get these in all sorts of forms, from wine to shoes to bags to sunglasses to watches. Yep.
That's really interesting.
Indeed. Renzo Rosso, who's our founder and president, is actually comes from a farming family and decided that the wine market needed could do with a fashion brand.
Needed some diesel in it, yeah.
Indeed, it needed some diesel in it. So that's we have a pretty diverse portfolio of products.
Right, brilliant. So how does the online integrate with the store? I mean, how does that work?
Today our online is managed centrally from Italy and always has been, and that presents both sort of advantages and challenges. The advantages clearly, there is a centralised department that's based in our HQ in Italy that focuses and obviously builds expertise in the e-commerce area. The challenge is, of course, how do you make sure that links with what's going on in stores around the world. We have a fairly seamless relationship with our centralised online team. We'll have weekly trading updates, we'll have monthly meetings via video conference to really talk about making sure that what the consumer sees online and then sees in store is consistent. So if there's a campaign, clearly the front page of the website will reflect the window that we have in store. The products that we're pushing, whether they be in the windows or in the threshold as you walk in, are the same ones that are being highlighted online. And indeed, that's apart from the proactive stuff. If you think about what sold well on online last week, and compare that with that product in the stores, you can clearly you can highlight opportunities pretty quickly and things that we perhaps didn't get enough of, or we haven't put in the most prominent places. We get an instant read clearly from the e-commerce business to allow us to see where we could be doing more in the bricks and mortar business.
I think that's really interesting because I mean the culture in Italy is very particular, isn't it? Quite different from the UK. So if
I know what you mean.
you get to a situation where you disagree on something, who wins?
There's no hard and fast rule. Anyone that can come up with the with the most rational and compelling business argument, I like to think wins.
Right.
Sometimes emotion overrules that, being an Italian company, but most of the time we find the right consensus.
And I'm fascinated to hear about you're putting iPads into the store. What do the staff do with them? How does that work?
Well, the iPad is to my understanding, or what I see around. It seems to be, it is the big thing at the moment too. If you're a retailer, you need to put iPads in stores. I think that the people that are making the most money out of iPads in stores at the moment are the people that make the casing that goes around the in-store. It's not necessarily the iPads themselves that are doing the job. What we've introduced them with is we've given a certain number to each store, not for the consumer to self-serve. It's not about that. We're a premium retailer, and the interaction with our staff to the consumer is absolutely paramount. The reason that the store is there has to be to convey and bring to life the Diesel brand in an experience. So it's not about substituting staff or encouraging people to come in and navigate around our iPads, which 9 times out of 10 probably won't be working. It's more about get our staff fully trained on them, so that when they are in a customer interaction and they've reached a point where there isn't the size, or another colour's wanted, or the customer likes that, but what could go with that, they can bring on and suggest solutions, whether it be transactionally or suggestions in terms of lifestyle options, etc. So it's an add-on to the service. It's definitely not a substitution or a replacement.
So how do you see that working out? I mean, whether the device stays an iPad or excuse me, or something else. I mean, do you see the end coming of fixed tills and it be devices that can conclude the transaction? And another interesting question on top of that: would that be an online transaction or a store transaction?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can talk about, at the moment we incentivise our staff obviously on the sales that they bring. We're now introducing an extra dimension to the staff incentive, which is if they have assisted in a sell that ultimately goes online, they're rewarded for that as well.
Right, yeah.
But just to put that one side and get back to your question, I mean, the whole bringing technology into retail, can anyone really predict what it's going to look like in 5 years' time? And we can take a good guess.
A lot of people claim to.
I'm sure. I mean, distinguished company. When it comes to that, I like to think of if you want to know what cars are going to have in 2 or 3 years' time, then you look at the Mercedes S-Class. And if anyone's seen the Top Gear program, because I haven't made that up, but time after time, the technology that Mercedes bring into their S-Classes is the technology that lesser mortals will see in the Ford Focuses and the rest of it in 5 years' time. ABS, sat nav, rear view parking cameras, etc. All that. To take that analogy and use it in retail, often people will say, if you want to know what retail is going to be like in 2 or 3 years, and obviously you've got people who are incredibly well versed in their subject, walking around with mobile tills, and the shopping experience is not only a pleasurable one, an informative one, but it's an efficient one. I think that the future will look something like that. I think the fixed tills and all the rest of it will ultimately follow the path where Apple is blazing the trail. But I think in terms of technology, it needs to be much bigger than that in terms of the wow factor. So, for example, we're looking at technology at the moment, which are virtual denim tables. So it's a flat screen table that you take a pair of jeans from the denim wall, and if you're talking to a customer and you want to talk about the benefits of the jeans or how the jeans were made or the intricate detailing around the jeans, you throw the jeans onto the table, and what comes up in a theatricalized way, if that's a word, is information and benefits around that product, so that you're interacting with the technology. The consumer is having a wow moment because it's something new, it's something that's enhancing that consulting that it's getting from the salesperson. And it's harnessing, for me, that's harnessing technology in quite a smart way, because it's both information, but it's also theatre. And if you throw that across to, well, what if we didn't have a wall of real sneakers? We had a wall where you had a huge flat screen television, and you could go and scroll through the products, on the wall, on the screen. That's a wow factor, plus being clearly harnessing technology around the whole information and expertise side.
Right, no, that's really interesting. Now, I mean, a big challenge for bricks and mortar retailers is technology taking customers out of the store, but you're being very clever and doing some very innovative things to drive customers into the store. I mean, Diesel Island campaign, what a great example of that.
Have we got, is the slide there? Can we get the slide on? There it is, it works. I wouldn't expect them not to press next. I mean, we see, Diesel's always been a brand that, when you talk to our online retailers, people like ASOS, they will tell you that Diesel as a brand does very well online. Now, there's a number of different reasons that people like to come up with as to why that would be. Diesel people are more savvy when it comes to technology. The Diesel brand grew up at a time when people, the people who were sort of 15, 16, 10, 15 years ago, and now they never knew anything else. They didn't have to adapt to technology. They grew up with it. And Diesel was a brand that accompanied that growing journey. But for whatever reason, we do have a very strong kind of online following. And this is just an example that we've used recently. Every year, Diesel do a big brand campaign. And last year it was Diesel Island. Now the idea around Diesel Island is the world is a really screwed up place, and there are no countries left that are actually doing it well. You know, and so what Diesel wanted to do was to launch a new nation. So Renzo, our founder and president, actually bought an island. Actually belongs to Costa Rica. As long as Costa Rica don't figure out that, you know, we're trying to launch a new nation on there, we should be okay. But he launched this. He bought an island, and his idea was that he wanted to create a new nation, and he wanted to get people to sign up and get passports to come and live on this island. That's where it conceptually begins to kind of fall apart, because you can't really actually live on this island. But anyway, the idea was that physically, no. So the idea was that if we could launch a Facebook campaign where we lay out our manifesto for the new Diesel Nation, we can recruit people to sign people up for, you know, the Diesel Island experience, and get them to kind of find out and hopefully buy into this engaging idea. But to get any further, they needed to go into one of our embassies, which happens to be our stores. And to go into one of our embassies, you get a passport, and with that passport, if you buy an item of clothing, or if you complete an online questionnaire about your feasibility to be part of Diesel Nation, you got stamps, and with the stamps you got access to Diesel Island experiences. And so, you know, linking it all up, what you get is, you know, everything revolves around the in-store. You start with, you know, your Facebook campaign, obviously on your website as well. All of this is getting people aware of what's going on, but driving them in store where they can get their passports and they can get their passport stamped. Once they've got their passport and they get enough stamps, they can go to big events that we were holding, and we had all sorts of different, they were kind of, we termed them as workshops. They were things workshops that you go to prepare you for island life. So we had one on taxidermy, for example. So, you know, when you move to an island, you want something on your mantelpiece, you want a stuffed bird, here's how to stuff a bird. We did one, we had a lecture with Goldie, who was going to tell us how to start a revolution. Unfortunately, this didn't go down too well, because this was right in the middle of the London riots. A tricky subject to navigate around. And we also had, obviously, you know, the classic island parties, and, you know, we ran competitions where you could win a trip to Ibiza to go and have a Diesel Island experience. So all of these things are going on. People go to these events, we film them, we then put them on YouTube. People go back on, you know, people having been to the events, then go back on Facebook, tell all their friends about this fantastic Diesel experience, and all the time you are generating clearly awareness, engagement, interest in the brand that will hopefully drive people back into store. So, you know, it's never about, you know, online's going to take over the stores. It's how do you use online to get, you know, to join up with what's going on in the stores and increase your brand engagement and hopefully sales.
Fascinating. I think it's really great. And, you know, when you hear of so many, I mean, there's a growing and long list of businesses that have gone under in recent years. I mean, Game this, you know, just recently, which I personally found very sad. But Woolworths and many more. I mean, what's the difference between your brand? Why are you succeeding and other brands? What are they doing wrong? What's the key elements of it?
I think retailers, you know, I'm not a self-professed expert, and I wouldn't say that we're best in class, but if today you look at the retail stores as transactional places, people that come in, you know, shop assistants that look disinterested, that are there to sort of point you in the right direction, hopefully, take your money, put the stuff in a bag and bid you goodbye, then it's obsolete, it's gone. Transactions, that's why you've got a website for that. If, however, you can, you know, and this, I don't want to sound sort of glib or cliche, but if that store can provide an experience about what that brand stands for, and that's obviously consistent with your brand values and the messaging and the rest of it, then the store becomes, you know, a marketing and recruitment vehicle for your brand. I'll give you an example. Clearly, in the fashion industry, you go to Abercrombie & Fitch not to be dazzled by the amazing expertise of the sales consultants that will tell you, you know, in a Savile Row manner, just exactly what you should be wearing. No, you go there because you feel like you're in a beach club in Santa Monica looking at naked models or semi-naked models and feeling slightly inferior at the time. But Abercrombie and Fitch, you know, their stores is, you know, they're bringing the idea of West Coast surf city, surf clubs to the high street. So, you know, you go in there and you leave understanding or being, you know, having a greater perception of what Abercrombie and Fitch as a brand stands for. And hopefully, you know, it's an appealing one that will get you to be, you know, a loyal and hopefully ongoing purchaser of Abercrombie and Fitch clothes.
Right.
So store retailers that are doing well are clearly taking, you know, certainly branded fashion retailers, they're taking what their overall reason to be is, and they're making sure that that gets absolutely nailed in store in terms of providing the experience that's consistent with that brand message.
Mm-hmm.
And we try and do that. I mean, you know, Diesel is a bit of a quirky brand. We're a little bit different, and so the stuff that we do in store has to reflect that. And so if it's, you know, if it's Diesel Island and people come in and get passports and, you know, get to come to events like the ones I've just been talking about, then it's not necessarily about, you know, they're going to spend more money then, but we will engage them in the brand in hopefully a longer term way. They'll come back and they'll remember that and say, actually, yeah, I like these.
I mean, retail's about listening to consumers and giving them what they want. And you know, many traditional mainstream retail brands have been very successfully transitioning the digital world. Tesco, John Lewis, Marks and Spencer, just to name three. So is it the very traditional ones that aren't going with the flow, that aren't listening to the customers hard? Are they the ones that are suffering?
I think there's a couple of classic mistakes people make. And I see it with my own, you know, as I said, we're a wholesale business that sells to retailers. I'm a supplier as well as a retailer. And you talk to retailers, some of the retailers, and you know, I can, not just independent ones that are, you know, sort of doing their own thing in a very small way, but I'm talking massive, world famous retailers are getting it wrong because they're treating online as almost a completely separate world. And they're saying, right, you know, we've got a bricks and mortar business, we know how to do that, but we're going to go away and create like an MI6 team to build our e-commerce site. And they go off, and you know, they're completely separate from the business. You know, they're working in this own virtual world. There's no overlap. There's no seamless communication. Sometimes even the stock is separate. And then they wonder how they fail. Instead of saying, well, if the role of the online is to, yes, of course, talk about give a retail experience, but do it in a transactionally driven way. And in the meantime, in store, you know, we're going to provide a service experience which will hopefully build overall loyalty to our store. Then the two can exist complementary. If you try and replace one with the other, or if you try and do the same job online as you're trying to do in the stores, or vice versa, you're going to end up with duplication and ultimately failure.
That's really great. That's really interesting. We're running short of time now, but just a few closing questions. What do you see as the role of the store in the future? What do we need shops for? What will they do?
It's back to the experience again. If I look at my store portfolio and I look at the next 5 years, what I'm looking for stores that are, first of all, big enough, because I think fewer, bigger, better is ultimately what is going to prevail. What you did with 400 stores 10 years ago, you don't need 400 stores.
To really stamping your brand.
Absolutely. You look at any fashion retailer, take a walk down Regent Street tomorrow and understand what fashion retailers are doing down there, whether it's Burberry at the far end or it's Tommy Hilfiger or whatever. These guys are putting in a big brand statement to get people to buy into their lifestyle proposition. And the brands are there as a theatre, as a recruitment tool to express what the brand stands for, make it as appealing as possible, make it as consistent as possible, and hopefully begin to recruit people into that brand. Now, whether or not they're in there and they actually transact is actually immaterial. It's does the person go away from that store with an attraction that was greater than it was before towards that brand.
Okay, and is there a future for social commerce? Is it a fad that we're seeing Facebook and social and all of this, or is that a part of the future? I mean, how do you see that?
I mean, I think So I think the jury's still out on things like Facebook commerce. I think that it for me is maybe, it's an unnecessary step. I mean,
a lot of people pulling out there.
Yeah, I mean, Facebook and social networks as an overall medium is hugely influential. It's work experience season at the moment. We've got some 14, 15-year-old kids working in our office, and they're fantastic because you sit down and you talk to them and get some real aha moments. And just talking to a couple of them today, we were trying to ask them, why do you wear these brands? Why do you like Hollister? Why do you like Abercrombie & Fitch? Why do you like Diesel? And they'll tell you about, when they're on Facebook and the coolest kid in the class is talking about he's just got a new Hollister polo shirt. Suddenly, everyone wants a Hollister polo shirt. And kids at that age, they're tribal. That counts, that matters. So this sharing of my consumer habits, my spending habits for those opinion formers is a hugely powerful mechanism. And we need to tap into that, so the cool kids that are talking about the clothes that they're buying, hopefully they're talking about Diesel. So the social network as a whole is absolutely paramount.
Right. But
the commerce side of it, it's if you talk about a product on Facebook, then you click through to that particular branded website and you're off. What's the step that? Well, actually, I'll stay on Facebook to buy it. It feels a bit like the mini displayer between CDs and MP3s. A bit of an unnecessary step.
Okay, final question. I'm afraid we're out of time. We could continue this conversation for a long time, I'm sure, if we have the time. But favourite brand, not Diesel. Favourite retail brand.
Favourite retail brand. I've gone through the list, and I don't think there's any of my major customers in the room. I'm personally a big lover of John Lewis. And from an e-commerce point of view, I think of the example, and we wanted a barbecue last summer. I'm not a great barbecue person, like most men. I put it on and then lose interest in the rest of it. But anyway, we wanted a barbecue. Onto the John Lewis site you go. You obviously navigation, and you find your range of products, and then there's a video that will tell you all about the different uses. And when you're not using it for barbecues, you can put an ice bucket in it, and suddenly, within 5 minutes, I've become a barbecue expert.
Right.
I know everything there is to know about barbecues that are really useful. And then, of course, you can buy it online, but then you can then go and pick it up in store.
Right.
And it makes for a nice day out in Cambridge, and we'll rock up. And of course, when we're in store, we'll have a coffee. We'll look around, we'll look at the furniture, and suddenly you found that most of your disposable income is being put into John Lewis. But they are going back to this consistency and seamlessness. They are a retailer that absolutely nails it when it comes to, you can be online and have an experience. You can then go to the store and that experience simply continues.
And if the wheel falls off, you can take it back to the shop.
And if the wheels fall off, there's an incredibly nice man that will change it without any kind of remonstration, and off you go again. So, John Lewis for me.
Jonny Hewlett, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.